Good morning and welcome. My name is Chris Shelton. I'm coming to you live from a really warm and toasty, beautiful day here in San Jose, California, the heart of Silicon Valley. This whole month we've been talking about the energy of our space because the energy of our space actually goes back into our overall emotional well-being, our physical well-being, as well as our spiritual development. So knowing and understanding your environment is of utmost importance. And so a few weeks ago, we actually did a YouTube live, Facebook live, where we're talking about the personality type or the typology that all of us are. And if you go to my book, Qigong for Self-Refinement, Total Health with the 5 elements, there's actually a 5 element questionnaire. We're actually calling it now, we actually have a newer version of it. And if you click on the link below, it's called the 5 element personality uh, profile. I can't even talk this morning. All this nice weather is doing something to me. Anyways, yeah, so take the 5 element personality profile and you get to figure out what your typology is. So if you're a fire type, that means that your heart governs you. If you're wood type, that means your liver and your gallbladder govern you. If you're a metal type, your lung is what governs you. And if you're earth type, it's your spleen and stomach that governs you. And then finally, the 5th element is actually the water type, which means that your kidneys and your bladder govern you. So based upon those 5 elements, what we talked about was that in your environment, especially in your bedroom or maybe your workspace, whatever place where you spend the most amount of time is what you would want to do in order to enhance your typology. So for example, me being a wood type, I want to have more color green inside my environment, live plants, candles, maybe long rectangular candles, pictures of trees or of mountains, those types of things. Now that represents the wood element that actually helps to enhance my wood typology. But also what I talked about a few weeks ago was if you know you're weak or deficient in something. I used myself as an example, saying that I used to be deficient in fire energy. And so what I did in order to enhance that was I put my head of the bed in the south because the south relates to the fire element and relates to the heart. And then what I did was I found shapes and objects that benefit fire, which is the triangular shape or the pyramid shape. And even more so, I found actually red pyramids because the color red actually works with the heart system, the heart network, and helps to build the fire inside the fire element within yourself. So just a little recap, what had happened was that I'd gone through a few nasty just got done with a nasty divorce, bad breakup right after that. So I was completely cut off energetically here in my heart center. And so it made sense that my fire element, that my heart was my deficient one. So if you know you are deficient or weak in an element, let's say you're weak in water and your kidneys are weak or wood or etc., then you could actually take the 5 element profile quiz and click on the link below, and then we'll go ahead and send that out to you, and then you can figure this out for yourself. Now, what I talked about too is that Feng Shui only accounts for about 15 to 20% of your being, which means that if you're somebody who thinks, you know what, if I'm lacking love in my life, I need to build this fire element, and I don't have to do anything else, well, guess what? You're wrong. You still have to take care of the other basic things in order to build up that element, okay? Or in order to build up, if you're trying to build wealth, and this is what we're going to be getting into today. We're going to be talking about the bagua and how that relates to your overall space environment and how that relates energetically back to you. So the bottom line is that you still have to make those other changes. And what's cool about Chinese philosophy, whether we're talking about Qigong, whether we're talking about Tai Chi, Chinese medicine, herbology, pharmacology, Chinese nutrition, the teachings of the I Ching, Feng Shui, Chinese astrology, what's really cool is that this whole system is all based on one thing, and that's the concept of qi. Now, grant you, there's only one qi, which is God, the Tao, the source, the universe, whatever you want to call it. But really, this qi actually manifests in different ways. And I gave the example last week because we talked about the 5 direction meditation in order to benefit your 5 internal organs, but also to give you kind of like a protection against the intrusion of pathogens, viruses, whatever, and or people. If you know you're going into an environment where the energy is not so good, then you can actually do this 5 direction meditation. So check it out from last week if you missed that one. And this can actually help to benefit not only your internal organs, but your connections with your environment. And I think that a lot of times people forget that we are directly connected to our environment. We are directly connected to one another, to the insects, to all the plant life, all the animals. We're all interconnected together, and we're all bound together by one source. Now, when we look at our environment, though, some questions that came up for me was that, well, Chris, what can I do? I hear something about this compass school, or what is it called, the Black Sex School, and the compass school is a valuable way to figure out the structure, or the if you need to enhance certain elements or certain things like prosperity or social relationships in your life. Understanding where those items are found in the location of your home, let me rephrase that space is in the location of your home, is really important to understand, especially if you're kind of deficient in that. Now, like what I talked about a few weeks ago when we were talking about our 5 element body profiles or personality profiles, uh, realistically, if we're trying to build and enhance what our strongest element type is, and or bring up what our weakest element type is, then actually going back to that, doing that profile quiz and basing your environment on whatever your typology is or whatever your deficiency is. But if you know the location, or if you know the direction of your home, that's great. And if you don't know the direction of your home, that's okay too. You can always get a compass. But the easy way of doing things is that they actually refer back to the bagua. Now, what is the bagua? Here's an example of the bagua, and they actually use this in Feng Shui in order to predict what areas of the house would actually be connected to, let's say, your health, and your vitality, your spiritual development, your love life, your social life, fame, those types of things. But a little background on this bagua. These little symbols here. This is called the pre-heaven formation, and I don't know if I need to come in a little bit closer here, but this is called the pre-heaven formation. And up here, these 3 lines here. This is also referred to as the 8 great manifestations of energy, or the 8 great manifestations of yin and yang. Wow, there's such a deep philosophy behind this, but I'm not going to go too deep right now. But these line formations, called the pre-heaven formation, because these line formations actually is the cyclical rise and decline of yin and yang. So, for example, if I was to go in this direction here, this would be the decline of yang and the increase of yin, and now yin is at its fullest, and then what's happening here is that yang is starting to show itself to where it comes to its fullest, and then it continues. So there's always this waxing and waning of yin and yang. And this bagua, actually, we have another series that we're going to be coming out with later on this year on the I Ching, the Book of Change and the Unchanging Truth. And the basic philosophy of the I Ching is on this bagua and on yin and yang theory. And so what happened was that the Chinese were intuitive, wise enough to understand thousands of years ago that they could describe energy in a simple written energy language of either a straight or a broken line. And when you combine the different combinations, it comes up to the eight manifestations of energy. But when you multiply 8 times 8, then you come up with what is called as the 64 possibilities of energy interaction. And those 64 line formations, or what we would call as triagrams, actually show, or I'm sorry, excuse me, but a hexagram. Those 64 hexagrams are the interactions of yin and yang, and they say that it describes everything in the multi-universe. Okay, so I don't want to go too deep with this, but that's what these lines are. They're not just little pretty little symbols. They all mean something. Now, this mirror in the middle, one of the ways that you could utilize this in your environment is if, let's say, for example, you could hang it over your front door. Or let's say the door goes straight through to the sliding glass door in the back. You could actually hang the bagua on the sliding glass door in your backyard, over let's say the curtains or whatever, to deflect the excess energy that's racing in from the front door. But one of the ways that you utilize this is to go ahead and place it over your front door. Because really what the mirror in the middle is that it's reflecting back to the other person. So if you're like me, you only want people in your environment and in your home that are supportive, loving, caring, and have good intentions. So what the mirror is supposed to represent is to reflect back to the person of who they are. So for example, like I have bagua inside my office actually facing the office door. When you come into the treatment room, there's actually a big bagua. It's kind of hidden, but there's a big bagua on the wall there, because I only want clients that want to show up, that are kind, that are there to help me help them develop themselves. I don't want people there that have ulterior motives or have an underlying agenda. Okay, so this works really good, and it's very subtle. I'll give you just a really quick example. At our office, we had a couple of years ago, we had some tenants moved in across the hall, and they weren't the nicest tenants in the world. And so instead of confronting that energy face head on like that, what I did was I stuck a bagua to the side of the door at eye level, so because their door actually faced our office door, and actually I put a live plant there as well too. Well, what was interesting was that after about 2 months, it didn't happen right away, but after about 2 to 3 months, they had a backsliding glass door, and they actually started to use that backsliding glass door instead of the front door. And then time continued to carry on, and then they actually end up moving downstairs, and then eventually they ended up moving out of the building. Now you can say that's coincidence, but we've done this more than once, and I can tell you that it's very subtle, and Feng Shui is very subtle, but this is a good way to go ahead and to help to protect your energy and your environment. Because again, what we've been talking about here is how to utilize the space that we have in order to benefit our overall well-being. Now, what's interesting about the Compass School too is that a number of years ago, I used to teach for Marvell Semiconductor, and I started with them when they were a very small company. I believe I started with them in 2001. And when they moved to their second location, they actually had professional Feng Shui practitioners from China come and actually put specific sculptures outside of their building, around the building. And within a few years, they actually tripled or quadrupled in size, and actually took over a large set of buildings in Sunnyvale. But I thought it was really cool because these sculptures were not really. It wasn't like I guess you would say like blaring like Feng Shui, but it's very subtle. And these pretty sculptures that were outside the building, but actually they took into account, besides obviously properly running the business, the company, and growing and developing and stuff, they actually also took into account obviously the importance of their environment in their wealth and in their prosperity, and it paid off. So it's something really cool. So there is something to Feng Shui and the energy of your space. I mean, if you think about it logically, it's much nicer to do your Qigong practices in the garden instead of standing on the toilet. I don't know about you, but it's a really crappy idea to do that. Okay, so all right. So when we look at the Compass School, one of the basic ways for us Americans that don't want to pull out a compass, generally speaking, as you see here on this bagua, do I need to get a little bit closer? Okay. So generally speaking, when we're looking at this, bagua, here's your front door. Here's your front entrance, and what you would do is you'd take another piece of paper and you'd actually sketch out your house. And now if it's 2 stories, you'd separate the upper level, obviously, where the bedrooms are, where the bathrooms are. But starting with the front door, then you'd go ahead and place this over the top. Now, if you see here, this starts off with the north, which is the water element, okay? So this goes into your career or work. So walking into the front door there, if you need more opportunities in your career, more prosperity there, or maybe help finding a new job, then maybe paying attention to putting certain objects and or things for that career spot area by the front door. Okay, so this is the way that they normally do it. So you'd actually would lay this on top of, so the idea is that if you got a transparency of this and drew out your house on another piece of paper, and if your house is a square, that's always easier. But if it's not, more of a rectangle, you can actually go online onto Google Images actually, and you type in bagua for Feng Shui, and you're going to come up with this bagua symbol. So there are easier ones too. They're actually shaped like a square or shaped like a rectangle. Maybe your house is more shaped like a rectangle, more longer as opposed to being more square. So you could actually utilize this. There's also videos on YouTube, very simple videos to help you understand this deeper. My purpose here today is just to introduce you to this concept and to introduce you to this idea. But anyway, so this is the way to do it. So you'd walk in from your front door there, and then to the side would be your from the northwest would be your social, okay, and then we come up here to your creativity, which is in the west, and then your relationships, okay, which is in the southwest, and then the south is for your heart or the fire element, and that's fame and reputation. Fame, I want to live forever. Anyways, I'll stick to my day job. And then they have the southeast, and that's your financial area. Okay, then you have the east, which is more about family. Okay, then the northeast, which is mind or spiritual. And then the center of the bagua here is actually your health and your longevity. Okay, this is related to your earth element. Okay, so that's a simple way to do it. Again, get a transparent piece of paper or a transparency, put that in your printer. We could always email this out to anybody who wants it. So give us your email information. We could actually email this out to you. Get a transparent piece of paper or transparency, print it on this, and then what you do once again is then you go ahead and you draw out your house. And it doesn't have to be perfect and all measured out, but just roughly, like, where is the living room, where is the bathroom. Like with our front door, when you walk into our front door, our bathroom is immediately to the right. So when you walk in there, then what happens is that pertains back to our social aspect of our being. So just for fun, as family members, we all gather around the bathroom to socialize. Just kidding. That's the limiting thing about using the compass school in this fashion. But if you want to be more serious as far as your environment, then what you would do is you would get an actual compass. And when you got your compass, you would actually face the door. And when you're facing the door, if it said south or north, that's great. But maybe what if it starts off? What if it starts off here in the west? So then what would happen is this: if the entryway to your front door is facing west, and you would now place this bagua this way. This would now be your front door here in the west, and then you'd actually go ahead, and then if there's any areas of your life that you needed to improve on, then you could actually add specific items or materials or textures or colors to those areas in order to enhance that. But also too in your bedroom, because some people will say, well, Chris, what about my bedroom? I spend a lot of time in the bedroom. You could actually use this for the bedroom. So again, most people's bedrooms are a square, and if they're not, if they're a rectangle, that's fine. You could always modify this to elongate it to make it more rectangular shape. But if you have a compass, and most phones nowadays actually have compasses on the phone, it may be off a little bit because the compass will be off because of walls, other, let's say, metal objects or anything else, televisions or whatever. So that might throw it off a little bit. But even if you get a rough idea as to what the direction of your doorway is for your room, then would place this on top of that square. And let's say, for example, if I needed more financial health, then in my far right corner of the room, if my front bedroom door was facing the west, would be financial. So if I needed more financial help, then the far right hand side of the room, I would actually utilize that corner of the room. So maybe I might have things of the bowl shape. The bowl shape actually relates to the dome shape. So the dome shape actually relates back to the metal element. Though this corner of the room actually relates to the wood, but finances and money actually come back also to the metal element itself. So maybe I might put a dome sculpture, or maybe a picture or an abstract painting of domes. You could actually go ahead and put colors of brown or purple in that area. You could actually have pictures, or maybe put money in that corner. Maybe you put like a little statue, like a little Buddha statue, or whatever it is that you align with, that you make offerings to. whether it's the cross, whatever it is, and you can make offerings and you can actually put money into that corner. And then what that will do is it will actually help to go ahead and bring in this prosperity. Okay, so the more intention that you put in that area, then what will happen is that the energy in the universe will start to show it to you. And like I said, it's very subtle though. It's very subtle. It's not something that's you're going to notice right away, like you're going to make a certain change and then kaboom, all of a sudden you have this great social life that maybe you didn't have once before. But believe it or not, by doing these subtle little changes in your environment, it can actually help to enhance your overall well-being. And again, our environment really dictates how we feel. And one of the things I used to say to my kids is that the way that your room looks, so your external environment, 9 times out of 10, reflects your internal environment. So if you're somebody that hoards things, collects things, and your environment is cluttered and messy, chances are that's a reflection of also what's going on the inside. So clear out your external space. This will actually help you to clear out your internal space and free up the space for your mind to be settled and for your spirit to develop. All right, so as we wrap up here, once again, we have all these different tools at our hands in order to help us benefit. 2 months ago, we were talking about relationships, because relationships, if they're not healthy, they can make us sick. And the ones that do support us actually help us grow and prosper more. Last month, we actually talked about the energetic properties of food. This month, we're talking about the energy of your space. And if you want to learn more about this and you want this to become part of your life like it has for me, I can't believe all the great things that have happened since I started practicing Qigong and teaching and seeing clients in clinic. We actually have a new level 1 Qigong teacher training program that's actually going to be starting in June. And we're going to have that on the link below also. It's a 13-week program. It's interactive. And at the end of the 13 weeks, then we get together for a practical live in-person exam and going over everything that we've covered in 13 weeks. But the other cool thing too is that let's say you live somewhere like Brazil, Costa Rica, or New Zealand, and you can't come over here to the States, can't come to San Jose, or sometimes we host these practicals in Los Angeles. Then the cool thing is, because of technology, is that we could actually Zoom you in live, and it's really like you're in the classroom. We've done this numerous of times, and what we're looking for is for people like yourself who are interested in these videos, who want to develop themselves first, and then be able to spread the knowledge to other people. Now, some people don't want to teach Qigong, but where this program is handy for people is that even if you don't want to teach Qigong, then what it does is it really helps you to focus on yourself, and it helps you to start to develop and to harmonize yourself, your internal well-being, your mental, emotional well-being, physical and spiritual. And there's no bigger gift on this planet than being able to have balance in all 8 areas of your life, right? So once again, my name is Chris Shelton from beautiful San Jose, California.